I had almost no appreciation for poetry when I was growing up. I didn't get it. I couldn't understand most of it. I really didn't like it. Other than little ditties like roses are red, violets are blue, and then you put a couple rhyming words in there, I didn't recite it at all, except in English class where I was forced to memorize some poems. End of discussion. Until about the time I was called to the church. Right around that time, about 25 years ago, I was first introduced to the books of spiritual theologian Eugene Peterson, who, by the way, happened to die a few years ago. He was an incredibly good writer and a passionate advocate for the importance of poetry and metaphor in the life of the church. He inspired me to take poetry much more seriously, and for a while I went to seminars, I went to conferences, I started reading it, I also tried writing it, my hand at writing it, and while I must admit it was a struggle to write it, I wasn't particularly good, nevertheless I discovered that he was right. It really is very important, and as Garrison Keillor has noted, good poems are important because they offer a truer account than what we're used to getting. Now, you may wonder why I'm talking about poetry in the single take in a series on the Old Testament. But if you remember in last week's single take, I mentioned that there was one gift. I mentioned one gift that the Old Testament gave Christians, and that was its honesty. Sometimes it's brutal honesty. Well, there's another gift that I want to talk about today, and that is, believe it or not, the gift of poetry. Yes, you heard me correctly. Did you know that slightly more than 1/3 of the First Testament is written in poetic form? The New Testament, by contrast, contains very little poetry, and the poetry that it does contain is mostly located in the book of Revelation, which is saturated with the symbolism and language from the First Testament. As First Testament scholar Brent Strawn has noted, the First Testament's poetry lives especially in the Psalms, but also in the prophets who sought, to quote Mark Twain, the right word as opposed to the almost right word, since that is the difference between lightning and the lightning bug. If the Psalms offer the poetry of praise and pain and prayer, the prophets offer us poetry that is the very word of the Lord. Poetry is a key feature in other books as well, where it becomes an ideal medium for discussing wisdom for life, as in Proverbs, suffering, as in Job, death, as in Ecclesiastes, love and sex in the Song of Solomon. Wherever it is found, poetry seems preferred whenever the subject matter is tricky. And what could be more difficult to discuss than God and God's ways in the world? Now, First Testament scholar Walter Brueggemann, when referring to this startling imagery of the First Testament, notes that no easy language will ever get this God said right. Poetry is no easy language and is better than flat prose at capturing the mystery of this transcendent and immanent God that we worship. Poetry both reveals and hides. It both alludes and eludes. In its hiding and revealing at the same time, poetry communicates and protects the holiness of our God, the Lord above all language. Emily Dickinson's poem, Tell the Truth But Tell It Slant, captures this quality of poetry. Here's the poem. Tell the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies. Too bright for our infirm delight. The truth, superb surprise. As lightning to the children ease with explanations kind. The truth must dazzle gradually, or every man be blind. The First Testament's poetic turn teaches followers of Jesus a deep respect for the mystery of God and life, about whom and which we should never speak lightly. I want to close this single take with a few verses in Psalm 19, which so eloquently speaks poetically of God's majesty. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night declares knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard. Yet their voice goes out all through the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In the heavens he has sent a tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom from his wedding canopy, and like a strong man runs its course with joy. Its rising is from the end of the heavens, and its circuit to the end of them, and nothing is hid from its heat.